I'm Ted Keys in Pasadena, California. Welcome to my Tuesday conference call, a free high-powered meeting I hold live every Tuesday for top producing freight agents. Go to tedkeysonline.com for complete call information. Then join us weekly to see new, serious, struggling, and experienced sales professionals move more freight efficiently, effectively, effortlessly, and make more money financially. So watch my recorded call topic highlighted there on your screen right now. When you're finished, go to tedkeysonline.com and hear more podcasts. Read more blog posts, watch more videos, and while you're there, visit my Freight Sales Success Store for top-notch freight moving products to explode your business today. Enjoy watching and applying my Tuesday conference call.
Hello and welcome to my Tuesday conference call, everybody. I'm Ted Keys, your host here in Pasadena, California. This is a free high-powered meeting I hold live every Tuesday for top-producing freight agents at 2 p.m. Pacific time and 5 p.m. Eastern time. On the call today, I'll show you how to move more freight efficiently, effectively, and effortlessly so you make more money financially. And after the call, go to my website, tedkeysonline.com, to hear more of these podcasts, read more of my blog posts, watch more of my videos, and then visit my Freight Sales Success Store for top-notch freight moving products that will explode your business today. And while you're there taking in all this free info, go to my contact page on my website and enter your contact details if you haven't done that already. By doing that, you'll receive your personal weekly invite to this and every call, along with the documents that I provide on every call that I discuss. You'll also receive my free report by doing that, 11 Ways Freight Agents Will Increase Their Income. Today I've got a great special guest on the call today. His name is Rick Rood. Rick Rood, you are calling from Stone Mountain, Georgia. Is that correct?
That is correct, General Atlanta area.
Awesome. Awesome, Rick. Thanks again for joining me on the call today.
Again, thank you for having me.
Awesome, Rick. Hey, Rick, just give us a short synopsis of your introduction into the freight industry, particularly as a freight agent. As a freight agent in this particular profession.
Absolutely. Well, I started at an in-house brokerage when I gained enough experience and the confidence and the customer base that I felt was needed to start out in my own agency. I partnered up with Logistic Dynamics, great company all around. They really care about their people. The whole purpose of me being my own agent and owning my own agency was one critical factor that I kept in mind was how can I better service customers as to their needs. And, owning your own agency is a great way to do that, being an independent broker. You have a lot more flexibility on what you can accomplish for your customers and the demands that they may put on you. Just with that being said, primarily what I do, I'm a customer service guy, I'm a sales guy, I'm a relationships guy, but at the end of the day, we move freight, and the best way to do that is to do it on your own terms as an independent agent.
Boy, I couldn't agree with you more, Rick. Let's just go back to the beginning, though. How did you end up in this profession, specifically?
It was kind of a act of God, if you will. I knew a gentleman who actually owned a large company. It's about $102 million annual revenue, logistics. I had no idea what I was going to be doing or what it would entail. The first week in there, started, kind of getting in the grind at ground level, just booking trucks, tracking, tracing. Fell in love with it. Something clicked in my head, and I was like, this is what I can do for the rest of my life. Make money. You get to talk to people. You get to build relationships. And you're ultimately serving a greater good. I mean, the United States commerce, people don't realize you can't do it without trucks, trains, and, it's impossible. So I really just kind of fell into it. But once, I got going, It was something that I decided I ultimately want to do for my whole life, because the limits for making money, you set your own limits. You can make as much money as you want to make. It's just you got to put in the work. As much work as you put in this business, it directly pops out the other side.
So are you saying that the action that we put into it equals the reward that we get out of it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's what you make of it.
How long were you with this, I'll call it a medium-sized broker?
4 years. 4 years I was
okay.
with them. Yes. Like I said, started out ground level. By the time I left, I was one of the highest paid employees across the entire company and had a team of 13 people answering directly to me.
You had a team of 13 people?
Yes, I did.
Okay, wonderful. And it took a couple years to build up that team, correct, Rick?
No, as a matter of fact, it only took me about 6 months to do that.
To build up a team or a team of 13 people, as you said.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Let's go back to the intricacies. I had a question earlier. What does it take before, how long does it take, Rick, before you can turn a prospect into a customer? Does anything stand out in your mind? Well, based on your experience, Rick, how many calls on average does it take, before you turn a prospect into a customer?
See, I have a different philosophy on this. Standard sales books, guides, and everything like that will tell you it's a numbers game, which it is to a certain extent. The more calls you make, the more opportunity you have to actually convert, say, a cold prospect into a lead, which then goes into a customer. However, I have found that it is much better to make quality calls. I would much rather make 10 quality calls that I'm on the phone with someone I just met for 15, 20 minutes, as opposed to make 40 calls a day. Just, hey, my name is Rick with Logistic Dynamics. I'd like to take a moment of your time, because everyone else calls them and says that same exact thing. So you want to add value to the call. And I think the more you learn how to do that, the more opportunities and the greater likelihood that it will be that you can convert a lead. So to answer your question, I don't think it's so much how many calls you're making. Don't focus on the number of calls. Focus on the quality of those calls.
How do you know that you've got a quality call, Rick?
Well, you can tell pretty easily. I mean, if you walk up to someone in public and you start talking to them and they kind of don't want to talk back to you, there's not really much you can do with that. However, if you're able to find a common ground with someone on the phone call, then you can go into anything. Look regionally. Where are they located? What types of activities are there? What is the weather like? What kind of sports teams are in the area? All of those things are great lead-ins that can open up a conversation. Now, I'm going to quote Jeffrey Gitomer. He says there's two good things about sales. Well, I'm sorry, there's a good thing and a bad thing, and they're the same thing. People do business with their friends. If you can't have common ground with someone, if you don't like talking on the phone with someone, vice versa, you're not going to get their business.
I fully agree with you, Rick. But let's go into a call where you don't know the individual.
Any given call where I don't know an individual, I always at least try to make a connection between the business I'm doing now and the business that they're doing.
And how will you go about doing that, Rick?
Well, if I'm calling a chemical manufacturer, I'm going to go in saying, hey, we do business with other chemical manufacturers, company A, B, and C. We do a great job for them. Do you guys do anything along those lines? Even if they don't, it's going to create, it's a thought-provoking question. You have to throw thought-provoking questions at them, questions that no one else would ask them, questions that get them talking, things where you can pick up little cookie crumbs to find out what it is that's important to them.
Gotcha.
Now, the big thing that I've realized is you can't sit there and provide a solution to a customer. You can't sit there and tell them, this is what I'm going to do for you, or this is how I'm going to help you, if you don't know what they need help with, if you don't know what lanes they're shipping, if you don't know what other brokers have failed to do for them in the past. How are you going to provide them a solution for that?
Absolutely. Let's go back again. As far as what are you going to say to say you're calling a chemical company now? I understand that you have experience moving hazmat, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And let's face it, that is a niche market. Would you agree?
I would agree, yes.
Okay. However, it's not necessarily an easy market to get into.
I would also agree with that as well.
Okay. So I guess you've got somewhat of an advantage because you're obviously aware of what's required in moving hazmat. And again, just because it is a niche market, that gives you the heads up. But boy, I bet that wasn't the case when you first started with that market. And also, is that a market that you had some familiarity with, before you even got into the profession, or is that something that you just gradually got into as you became, a successful agent?
Well, like most of the markets that I service at this point in my career, it was a market that I saw not a lot of other people were too keen to take a bite out of. And, of course, like you said, it's a very niche market. I didn't know anything going into it. But I wanted to get to the point where if a load was hazmat, I wouldn't turn it away. I wouldn't be scared of that load. So what I did was develop the carrier contacts to any market, even if it's strictly non-hazmat dry van freight. The key is having the carriers, having those relationships with the carriers. Once I had those in the hazmat industry, the hazmat marketplace, it was no different than any other load to me. And like you said, that's something that now I have experience because I wasn't afraid to dive into it, that I can go to a customer and confidently say, all your hazmat needs, I can handle them. And I feel, that's the best, that's where I have always found success. Loads, products, commodities that other people have a stigma about or just don't want to ship. Plants, produce, all those things. Huge industries. And you don't have to, it's not watered out with competition for those reasons. People see it and they say, I'm not really going to do that.
Got it. Yeah, and as far as I know, I have moved very few hazmat loads, Rick. One thing I do know is they do pay well once you get somewhat established.
Absolutely, they do. Absolutely, and that goes back to any commodity that's kind of people steer clear of. If it has to get there, if it's perishable or if it's hazardous or dangerous to ship, over-dimensional loads are a great example. A lot of people don't like fooling around with those. If you know how to do it, it's a great opportunity to make a large profit of money because these things have to be delivered.
Also, hazmat loads. I mean, there are different levels of hazmat loads, correct, Rick?
That is correct. There's different classes, packing groups, UN numbers. Depending on the way they're shipped, drivers may or may not need tanker endorsements. That varies from state to state. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of homework you have to do and kind of backstory on it.
Right. And as I asked you earlier, just refresh my memory, Rick, is that an industry that you had some familiarity with, or did you just
none whatsoever?
None.
None whatsoever. I had no knowledge of chemical manufacturing, packaging, nothing along those lines. It was all strictly by trial and error, and kind of went to the school of hard knocks on it. But like I said, it was just something that I noticed that people in my environment, they would see a hazmat load and they'd say, no, I don't want to do that. That's going to be too difficult to find the truck, or the customer's not paying enough money. I saw that as an opportunity to say, hey, if this is something not everyone else is doing, why not learn how to do it and create that solution for customers that I may have now and in the future?
Absolutely. Obviously, the right attitude to live by, certainly in this profession, Rick. In hazmat, you're dealing with some fragile stuff.
Absolutely.
But then again, it can be done. You just gotta tackle the requirements that go along with it. And let's face it, those requirements are the same with any of the freight, the certain types of freight that are out there. Let's stay with that thought, or stay with that process that we've been talking about. You didn't just, did you just start calling hazmat companies, Rick?
Yes, I did. I began, actually, the customer that I had, I was actually handed an account that was very, very unprofitable. I believe they were operating at maybe a 2% profit margin over the course of their annual business. When I got handed this account, I saw it as a great opportunity. It was a very, very large petrochemical oil refiner manufacturer out of Ohio.
Got it.
And, I looked at this problem and I said, the freight's here, the volume's here, the people are great. We have great relationships with them. Why not kind of lay it down on the line and say, listen, we want to keep doing business with you. We really want to up the operations. You guys all hazmat. We can do that for you. And the business just grew. It flourished like a flower with fertilizer all over it. It was great. And, at the end of that 6 months when I began having, when I just got my 13th member of my team, we were doing $2 million a year at a 20% profit margin with that one customer alone.
Mm-hmm.
And, that was we did absolutely nothing special, nothing that no one else wouldn't have been able to do. We grinded it out, and we didn't say no. We didn't turn down a single load.
Although you basically contacted the customer, I mean, I would venture to say that, you were given all the contact info to pursue this customer, correct?
Yes. For the most part, we had, it was one point of contact. I realized they had these, their manufacturing facilities all over the country. I apparently was the first one who had the bright idea to say, well, why not reach out and find out who the transportation managers are for all these other locations, which I did. And that leads me to another, great point I want to throw out there. Large companies that you do business with typically have more than one facility.
Absolutely.
And if they have more than one facility and you're not working with those facilities, you're losing out on business and money that's sitting right there in your backyard.
Absolutely.
I mean, you get one company whether it be the headquarters or just a small branch facility somewhere, and then you start calling all those others. Even though you've never spoke to those people, they've probably never heard of you. That's the lead-in right there. Hey, I work with your facility over in Giddings, Texas, or I work with Columbus, Ohio. We've been doing business for a couple months. Everything's going great. We would like to work with your facility as well. And you can just branch out and keep growing.
Yeah, once you establish that relationship with just one of those facilities, that's all you have to do. Just one.
That's
I mean, the others just make it that much more easier, don't they?
It is. I mean, word of mouth is, the easiest way to get business. If you're working with someone and they enjoy doing business with you and you do a good job for them, guess what? They tell their friends about you in the business.
Yeah.
They say, you're having problems.
Do you consider yourself a hazmat specialist now?
Absolutely. I'm certified, licensed, know all about it, front and back.
If you're pursuing new business, which I know you are, is it predominantly in the hazmat industry?
No, not necessarily, no. To be honest with you, hazmat is probably only 20% of what I do. The rest are very delicate and perishable items. I like freight that, if it doesn't get there, it's going to go bad. That means money for me. If I know that this, has to pick up at point A and deliver to point B in no less than 48 hours, well, if that customer, knows that has to be there in no less than 48 hours, they're going to pay to make sure it does get there. So I don't have a particular market that, I focus on 100%. I'm focused on, like I said, developing relationships with customers to where they can call me on my cell phone. We talk about things outside of business, and I focus on finding freight that pays well. We had this old saying where we used to say they have beer and toilet paper loads. Beer and toilet paper loads don't pay well. There's a lot of them. You might get 100 loads a week, but beer and toilet paper are always being shipped, and there's always going to be someone to do that very cheap. It's the things that don't ship all the time, those seasons, those market trends that you can really dive into and hit your big markets.
The competition level is pretty high with beer and toilet paper.
Exactly. It's the market is flooded. You have all these asset-based trucking companies who run that.
We as humans, we consume a lot of that stuff.
Yes, we do.
Competition, yeah. There's more than enough trucks that will do it. I mean, typically anything in a dry van is going to be competitive. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
I gotcha. You're bringing in somebody totally new onto your. I'm creating a scenario here for you, Rick. You're bringing in somebody totally new onto your team. They, maybe they worked in a warehouse at one point. Okay. So they have a general idea of how freight moves, or certainly how it's loaded and unloaded. What do you do to get them started on the right track?
On the right track, typically what I would put someone in any position, whether they have any experience pertaining to the industry or not, I would get them on the phone with drivers. I would have them focus on the general basics of what it is that we do every single day. I feel that there's no better way to learn than experience, and from my past and where I was taught and everything, that always started with finding trucks for the loads.
But let's backtrack again. This is somebody that doesn't work in your office, okay? But you've brought them in as an agent under you, Rick, okay? And that's somewhat of the scenario with the group that's listening right now. Alrighty?
Okay.
So somebody that you certainly talk to them a lot on the phone and over the internet, but somebody that doesn't have the ability to dispatch your trucks because they're not in your office. All you can do is teach them from a distance. Are you with me?
Yes, still with you.
That's the scenario. That's the scenario that I'm talking about.
Well, I would tell them, of course, brief them on what the goal is here, and that's to get customers, to get freight, and to move freight. I would, just discuss with them any experience they may have. Like you said, John Doe used to work in the warehouse. I would tell him, hey, listen, you used to work in this warehouse. What kind of products were in the warehouse? Like, just find something that or even something they're interested in. Maybe their families
have experience with.
Right, have experience with or just interested in. Some people are big sports guys. Well, hell, start calling big companies like Dick's Sporting Goods or Hibbett Sports or, Academy or any of those things. Find something you're interested in and that you want to move. Mm-hmm. At that point, the hardest thing to overcome is just picking up that phone and starting to call. But once you do it and once you get on a roll, things happen naturally. And take notes. That's one big thing that I tell all new people I work with. Write everything down. Notes are very, very important. Sales calls can go one way or the other. The good news is that if it goes absolutely nowhere, nothing was lost because you started out with nothing making that phone call. So no matter who you're calling, what industry you're calling, you just have to call. And one call, that guy's gonna be in a good mood, or that woman's gonna, might have just got flowers from her husband, so she's willing to talk. She's all smiley. You never know what call that's gonna be, but you just have to start calling. At that point, when you have interest from someone, make them feel like you want that business. Let them know that their business is important to you. Once you do that, and they see that you're willing to work for them and go the extra mile to get what they need done, and that you care, those people will bend over backwards for you to help you out and give you opportunity after opportunity to work with them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Got it. Are you going to tell them that this profession is easy and they can be, a millionaire within 3 months?
I'm more of a realist. I'm not going to say that's impossible because I've seen startup companies, blow up so fast. I mean, you take a look at what XPO Logistics has done to the industry. A couple of years ago, it was just a startup company. Now they're one of the larger players in the game.
Or a company like that?
Well, the gentleman who started it, he was from New York City. He went around and basically cherry-picked off a logistics dream team, if you will, from all of the major trucking companies and brokerages across the country. And they assembled this team, and they just went around. Basically, it was an acquisitions company. They were buying up smaller brokerages, buying them up, consolidating them, and it was huge. But that was a different business strategy. Now, to answer your question, it's as easy as you want it to be. I mean, it is what it is. We have a goal, we have a job, and we know how to do this job. So, like I said earlier, you can make as much money as you want to make. It kind of goes into what you put into it. I've seen agents start out with absolutely no idea what this business is, and then 3 months later, these guys are making more money than they did at a job they worked at for 10 years.
Is that the norm?
No, I would say that's not the norm. But the difference between those guys and most people who fail in this business is they realize the opportunity that they had. There's no cap. There's no one telling you can't do this, do that, grow as big as you want to get. When you realize that you have an opportunity like that, an open field to make money, the sky's the limit. Something will click in your head, and you'll just, it's a go-getter mentality is all it is. I've noticed some people just don't have that. Some people just don't have that fire inside of them to not worry about getting rejected on a sales call or failing to find a truck for a load. The thing is how many times are you going to keep calling after you get rejected? How many times are you going to keep taking that load until you make it work?
Yeah.
Those are the things that I think differentiate people who are successful in this business from people who aren't. It's just the willpower, that desire to succeed.
Great. You've been with Logistic Dynamics now for how long, Rick?
Just over a year. Just over a year.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And how's your team looking at this point? Have you built up? Did everybody come with you over to Logistic Dynamics when you moved over, or did you have to start from scratch again?
I had to start from scratch again.
Okay.
I was under a very enforceable non-compete contract, which I'm not going to go into, but I had to start over. And see, that was something that a lot of people looked at me, friends, family, colleagues, looked at me and said, "What are you doing? You're an idiot. You're walking away from a lot of money. You're a young guy that you're making probably 90% more than most people in your age group."
Right.
That didn't scare me because I knew that I would be able to build it all up again.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Okay. How old are you, Rick?
I am 25.
25. Okay. Wonderful. Rick, are you up for some Q&A?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay. For those folks who are listening on the call today, any questions? I'm assuming that you'll have a lot for Rick. Remember, he is a star producer with Logistic Dynamics. If you want to get some answers to any of your questions, hit *6. Hit *6. I will say this: if you're not asked, if there's a bunch of dead space, I'm just gonna I'll keep asking Rick questions. However, let's take advantage of this opportunity. For those of you that are on the line, hit *6 for any questions for Rick. Who's got the first one?
Remember, guys, the only bad question is the one you don't ask.
Yeah, it's amazing. Folks want to be successful in this profession. But
How you doing, buddy?
I'm all right. This is Mike. I was calling from Los Angeles. First of all, I want to say congratulations on your success. That's great what you've been doing and being so young at that, man. That's really impressive. I'm 49, and I've had my series of success. To see what you've done, that's pretty amazing.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate that very much.
Yeah. What questions do you have for Rick today, Mike?
Well, I'm doing a lot more cold calling now. I'm going after direct shippers. When you call a direct shipper, what are some great qualifying questions you'd like to have in your back pocket when you call them?
Some of my go-tos that I like to throw out there to direct shippers are, what are some of your problem areas? What areas of the country, which lanes do you ship that more often than not you have an issue with, whether that be capacity, pricing, whatever it may be? That's going to really, I always like starting with where other people are failing. I think that's the best place to get in with the customer. In addition to that, I ask them, what are some of the qualities that you value with your current partners? Like I said, closer to the beginning of the call, you can't help these people and you can't make them believe you can provide a solution unless you know what it is that they value and what it is that they're struggling with. The more information you can gather on your competition, the more information you have to create a game plan and a strategy to execute and, acquire the business.
Let's face it, Rick. Typically, when we get in with a new customer anyway, it's because we have solved a major challenge for them. Would you agree?
Most of the time, yes. We're fulfilling a desire or a need that they have.
Yeah. It's typically with a challenge lane, a problem lane. But that's a great question. I mean, basically, that's what I wanted to chime in with. What do you consider challenging? I mean, that's a great question for your first or your second call with a new prospect. So yeah, I'm just following up and saying, yeah, great question, Rick.
That was an excellent question, Mike. Yeah, and it really just comes down to getting someone to open up for you on the first call. The second call, you obviously have a little bit of a history with these people based off what the first call was like. But yeah, I've always found that whether you know these people or you just found the company on Cortera or Hoover's, you give them a call, and you just got to get them talking. I've found, or I've seen, the worst sales calls are the ones where you don't really know what you are trying to accomplish from the sales call. Do you want to one-hit wonder, close business on the first call, or are you trying to develop a relationship? You have to know you yourself what it is that you want to accomplish making a phone call. And until you know that, then, there's not really much you can ask. You're going to have one of those very flaccid calls to where everything you say, you kind of get like a one-word response. And I think some of the better advice I can give you, just on any phone call, don't ask yes or no questions. Yes or no questions are the absolute demise of salespeople because you can't get anything from it. So thought-provoking questions, make them pertain to their industry, make them pertain to what you can do for them, and like I said, just gather as much information as possible and take notes on what they're saying.
Yeah. Open-ended questions. That's what.
Very open-ended questions.
That's what you were saying, correct, Rick?
Yes, that is correct.
Hey, Mike. Mike?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mike, on another area. This is again, I'll call it what it is. It's a plug. You will find in my Freight Sales Success Guide, which is available for sale on my website. There's a portion of that where it talks about 15 must-ask questions to freight prospects. There's also a document in there called my Sales Call Information Sheet that has a number of other questions to ask for first-time calls. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
That's a great response that you just came up with there, Rick.
Thank you.
Tell me about your challenging lanes, boy, because let's face it, people don't like it. Just in general, folks don't like it when they're facing challenges or problems. Would you agree?
Oh, no, absolutely, I would agree. I try not to view any lane as a challenging lane.
Right.
I'm really old-fashioned in the sense that I believe that money solves everything, and if I know that in the past I've had issues finding capacity or getting the correct pricing for these lanes, you have to give the option to the customer. Options are what make you money. Right.
Of course, you're seeing that from a problem-solving perspective. You know that there is an answer to most challenges that are out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to take a look at why that lane or that area is a problem area. Yeah. And if you can figure out why it is, then you know how to fix it effectively.
Absolutely. Okay. Who's got the next question for Rick?
And this is it's Todd. Rick, how you doing today?
Hey, doing well. How are you doing, sir?
This is Todd from Chicago, Rick.
Okay.
Well, my question is going to kind of piggyback off that what you just said. Like when you asked the shipper, tell me about your challenging lanes. Mm-hmm. It seems I have no problem right now getting challenging lanes from shippers. So how do you go about finding carriers? Because I post loads every day, and I won't get one single call from a carrier. And then also, I guess it's a two-part question. What techniques do you use to negotiate with the carriers to try to get the most competitive rates? Because a lot of the freight I move, I have to bid on it, so I have to come in at the lowest bid to get the load.
Right. Well, I'm going to start off by answering the first part of your question with a question.
Okay.
You say you don't get too many calls on one of these particular lanes. Let me ask you, how many outbound calls are you making to try to find trucks?
Well, what I started doing is I started taking the carrier's MC numbers. So now I have over like 350 carriers' email address and phone numbers. So most of what I do is I'll email them. But I haven't really thought about calling too many of them. I have called a few carriers, and what I hear is when I do call is, it's either lumber or steel really the ones that I struggle with, and they're like there's nothing coming back, or they don't want to pay, or we don't want to put tarps on and do all the extra work.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, my business personally, 80% of the trucks that we put on our freight do not call us. We call them. So I'm going to give you a word of experienced, seasoned advice. You will have a lot more success covering those difficult lanes if you make outbound calls to trucking companies in the area of the pickup or in the area of the delivery and start asking around saying, hey, do you guys have trucks down in this area? No, we never go down there. Okay, we'll make a note of that. Where do you like to go? Then you can add on to those MC numbers that you have little notes that say these people only ship out of Arkansas going into Pennsylvania. Sometimes they'll do California, but you have to, like I said, you have to put in that effort. You have to make the outbound calls, and that's it's just as important to have relationships with the carriers as it is the customers. We could get 100 loads of freight today, but if I don't know anyone that's going to move those, what good is it for me to have those 100 loads? So it goes both ways. And, in terms of, lumber and steel are very difficult to move. And I feel like there's one core reason for that, and it's kind of like a beer and toilet paper type commodity. There's a lot of trucking companies that have built their business around running for lumber for certain people, running steel for certain people. So, if you're going to find people who are going to move that and you're going to be able to make margins and, make your profit out of it, it's really just going to start with the relationships with the carriers that you have to make. And, these guys aren't going to call you for a load that they can get directly from the customer. So, I think the best place for you to start in terms of, getting some of those difficult lanes covered, do a 150-mile radius search of trucking companies from the pickup and just start calling these people. Just investigating their rates. Do they work with this customer? How many trucks a week do you have available? How many drivers, how many teams, what kind of equipment? And just open up that dialogue. And, once you do that, you won't have to send out 100 emails a day talking about what loads you have available. You're going to know exactly who you're going to call, and they're going to start calling you on every Monday, every Tuesday, and saying, hey, do you have this lane, again this week that we talked about last week? I actually have a truck available. I remember talking to you. If you just put things out on the freight board, trucking companies will see that, and they know that you don't have anyone to go to, so they charge you a higher price, and you're not going to make as much money.
Okay.
That makes sense, Todd?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've learned that in the last month to develop the relationships with the carriers because I see that's important. So also, how do you? So you really don't have to negotiate at the point you're at. You don't really negotiate too much with the carriers. You pretty much tell them what you got. And
there's always negotiation. I completely forgot to ask or answer the second part of your question. The one thing that you have to do with carriers is you have to find your value for them. they're not just going to work with you if you think this is the only load you're ever going to give them, or they may work with you because they need to get back to a certain area, but they're not going to give you a good price.
Right.
Something I always like to lead in with is like, listen, I can give you this load every single Tuesday, and if I can't give it to you every single Tuesday, trust me, best believe, every single time I get a load in this area, you're going to be my first call I make. And, it's, like I said, it's just that relationship process. And then, you obviously have to find a middle ground on where you can make money and where they can make money to cover their operating costs and make a little, off the top. But that really just starts with, calling them. In terms of finding people calling you, like if you post a load and people call you and you're trying to negotiate that rate, I always like to answer the phone with this mentality. They called me because they want this load. As long as you put that in your mind, you're going to have the upper hand the entire time. Well, you want to pay $1,200. I really need $1,800. I'm, deadheading my truck from 200 miles away. Well, sir, I appreciate your honesty, but you called me, and I typically don't pay for deadhead. If you want this load, I can work with you at this rate. I understand you got a little ways to go, so I'll help you out a bit. Now, I could have helped him at, I could have just met him in the middle somewhere, but I let him know that, I brought it to his attention. You called me. You obviously have interest in this load. Don't sit here and stab me for it. Let's work together. I can give you, a little bit more money to help you out with your your troubles. And maybe I'm giving him a little bit more money, or maybe I'm not. But in his mind, he's hearing, okay, this guy's willing to work with me. He understands I'm coming from a ways away. Just little nuances, really go a long way. You just have to keep an open mind on call-ins that you get. Just you always have the upper hand. But like I said, really the best advice I can give anyone new in this business that's having trouble on a certain area, a certain lane, you have to make outbound calls. You absolutely have to beat down people's doors to find the best people to work with. I'm a firm believer, something I live by, there's a truck for every load.
Great answers, Rick.
Thank you.
Rick, you will actually say that to the carriers? Hey,
no, absolutely.
You called me. I mean, I
absolutely.
told you I'll give you 12, and you're actually asking 1,800.
Absolutely.
You call me. I mean, it's like you're calling them out on the carpet.
No, absolutely. Absolutely, that's what I'm doing. It's funny. Prime example. I had a gentleman call me 2 days ago. He was at $3,000 when he called in. He was dead set on getting paid $3,000 to move that said lane.
Was this for
he ended up taking. Actually, no, it was not. It was a refrigerated load of live fish.
Okay, live fish.
Live fish.
Got it.
They had air tanks in there and everything. But this gentleman called me. He wanted $3,000. He ended up taking the load from me for $2,200.
Yep.
And that it was as simple as saying, you know what, I appreciate your call, but we're just too far off. Well, whoa, what do you need to be at? I said, I'm at $2,000. Man, come on, I get this lane all the time from other brokers for $3,000. And I'd say, well, you know what, I would call one of your other brokers. Yeah. I always tell them that too. Oh, people are paying $2,400 on this lane. Someone called me a minute ago. Well, man, if I was you, I'd give them a shout back and take that, because that's an awesome price for that lane.
Yeah.
Give them your number.
My line is always, okay, just, you want to keep searching?
Yep. Yeah,
just, Yeah, I mean, I know we're not supposed to ask open-ended questions, but typically, do you want to keep searching? I mean, that's a yes or no question, but it's basically telling them, hey, you're
like, I'm willing to give this to you now, but you got to make the commitment to me as well.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay. Hey, Todd.
Yes, sir.
Todd,
yes.
I know Rick did give you a lot of information there. Did he satisfy your question somewhat?
Yeah, absolutely. Because my biggest concern is right now is the carrier relationship, and that's where I'm at, because I'm getting the load. I got pretty good relationships with shippers. It's just that
now it's developing the relationship with carriers. Rick made a great point. Rick made a great point before. You've got these beer and toilet paper loads.
Mm-hmm.
And And let's face it, Rick, those are loads that we typically start off with in this profession. Would you agree?
No, absolutely. I have to say I did start with a few lumber customers.
I mean, not everybody, but typically we start off with beer and paper toilet paper loads.
Absolutely. And listen, Todd, to hit another point, that's a great way, and for everyone else listening, to get new customers too, is once you talk to these carriers and you see what lanes they do like to run, that's a great lead-in to go to a brand new cold call prospect and call them and say, hey, listen, I've got trucks. I've got a company I work with nonstop that run from Atlanta to Omaha, Nebraska. Do you guys have lanes, anything like that? And the thing is if they say, yes, we ship 20 of those a week, then you can say, great, I can handle 20 of them a week or 10 of them a week because you know what that carrier can do for you. I mean, it's just it's a reverse flip side look at how you can, turn just a call with a carrier into a prospect call with a customer that could ultimately lead you to getting business.
That's exactly what I've been doing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Another upside of beer and toilet paper loads, if you want to phrase it that way, Rick, is these loads, they always pick up somewhere.
That's
and
right.
They always drop off somewhere, don't they?
Absolutely.
So that's the upside of a beer and paper toilet load.
You know what you're getting
somewhere,
every
they
single
drop
week.
off somewhere.
Right.
And every place that it picks up and drops off at, that is a new potential customer for you. But you got to get the load and get it in motion for that to happen.
That is correct.
And that's typically the growth process of the successful freight sales agent. Would you agree, Rick?
Absolutely. You have to seize the opportunities that are presented to you.
Okay. Todd, great question. Who's got the next question for Rick? Hit star.
I do, if you don't mind.
Go again. Go ahead.
Oh, this is Heath again. Can you hear me okay?
Fire away, Heath. This is Heath from Washington, Rick.
Hi, Rick. And let me preface this by saying I just got into this, so this question's going to sound basic. Please forgive me.
No,
But
like I said, go ahead.
When making that initial contact, what I think I am finding is I'm asking to speak to somebody in shipping, and a lot of what I'm getting is, oh, I can help you with that. And I know I'm speaking to the secretary. I know I'm not speaking to somebody in shipping right off the bat. Do you let that bother you, or do you just start creating rapport with that person?
Great question, Rick.
I again have my own technique that I use for when I get that. A receptionist will answer the phone, and then all of a sudden she's a transportation manager too. And
right.
I will ask her. I'll be like, oh, so you handle all the transportation and logistics and everything like that. And then when she says either yes or no, then you kind of have somewhere to go with that. If she says yes, then be like, great, I didn't realize that my luck was going to be so good today. I got you on the first call. Or
right.
You're going to call her out on it, and she's going to be like, no, well, he's kind of busy right now. I just take his calls. Okay, well, would it be easier for me to send him an email? I know people are busy. And then that way you at least have an email, and there's usually a name in an email, so you'd be able to get it that way.
And that's the route I've been going. Sorry.
Yeah, for those that are very, very just dry, they won't let you pass them, those are good gatekeepers. I wish I had one of those, you know what I'm saying? But
yeah,
you got to work them. The gatekeeper is just as important to the as the contact that you're going to get the freight from, because ultimately you're going to be speaking to her before every time you speak to your contact. Now, if you have a good relationship with her, she is going to be more than happy to take that little notepad with your information and bring it to that guy. If it didn't go so well and she doesn't really like the way you're talking to her or anything like that, she's going to say, okay, yeah, I'll give the information, take it, and then just let it sit on her desk and collect dust. No one wants that. But, if that's the case, I've also even, told a little white lie and said, well, I need to schedule a receiving appointment, or I need to schedule a dock appointment.
Gotcha.
Those things you'll get transferred over to shipping and receiving. Even if it's not the guy who answers the phone, that warehouse worker will be more than happy to tell you who you need to speak with, because they don't know any, they don't know any different. So, I've gone as far as, sending flowers to a receptionist before, just small little things. And, if it's really that important to you to get that business, hey, Why not? Why not spend $50 to have flowers delivered? That'll brighten up her day. Give her a call after it's delivered. Hey, this is this is Rick with LDI. What's going on? Oh, you sound like you're in a good mood today. Oh yeah, I just got some flowers. I'm glad you like them. Like just anything. You just got to keep them engaged in dialogue. But for those that just tell you, shut you down right off the get-go, saying, oh, that's me. Great. I'm glad I got you on the first call. I was afraid I was going to have to actually persuade people to put me through. Just
Rick,
something, make them laugh.
Are you married?
Okay.
Am I married? This is actually, today is my 7-year anniversary with my fiance.
7. Okay, so you're
7.
not married yet.
Not married.
Okay. Because sending somebody else flowers, I guess you have to see if that'll sit well with your significant other or not.
Yeah, that thought went through my head too as soon as you said it.
Hey, you know what? The significant other is going to appreciate that check coming in the mail each month, as opposed to me spending $50 just to get flowers to get business from someone.
Interesting. Okay. Heath, great question. I mean, did Rick satisfy you with his answer?
He did indeed. Thank you.
Absolutely, buddy. Yeah, just keep
You
calling.
got to get on the phone. You got to get on the phone. First of all, you've got to read that freight sales success guide that Matt gave you, correct?
I'm doing it as we speak. I'm in the process of putting that in front of me.
This is not the time to be reading it. After the call is when you read it. But anyway, a lot of those answers are right there in that guide. All right?
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I'll do it.
Who's got the last question for Rick? Hit star 6. Last question for Rick. Hit star 6.
Hey, Rick. This is
Hey, how you doing?
Ash. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Doing great, buddy. Doing great.
on
What's
the
up?
line?
Fantastic. This is Ash from Brazil.
Ash. Welcome to the call, Ash.
How are you doing? I'm sorry, Ted. I was a little bit late to the call. That's why I didn't
problem.
introduce myself
No
at the
problem.
beginning.
Ash, fire away.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask a question. You were speaking earlier, Rick, about speaking to carriers. One of the things that I found is when I call carriers, I normally end up with kind of a higher rate than what I'm actually prepared to pay or what the customer is looking for or what the competition is.
Great point, Ash.
So how do you kind of overcome that? Because I try not to call carriers because of that reason. And I'm just wondering, Rick, what your take on that is.
Are you just saying in general when you make outbound phone calls to carriers that you end up paying more than you would just receiving a phone call?
Yeah, I normally find that my negotiation power drops a lot when I phone a carrier rather than them calling me.
Just like when carriers
that's
call us,
a
Rick, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that really just comes back to what value do you offer them in giving them that load. If you call a carrier and you give them a lane that they have never done before, the rate's going to be higher. You're going to have to convince them to do it for you. You're going to have to make it worth their while. But then again, like I said, it's all about which carriers you call. I'm not going to call a carrier from Oregon to do a load from Georgia to Pennsylvania. Now, they might very well have trucks in Georgia, but what incentive do they have to do that run to Pennsylvania at a fair rate? And they may do it, but they're going to make it, they're going to have to charge me what they need to make it worth their while. So, that kind of goes down to, I wouldn't say every single carrier is right for every load just because they give you a price. The key thing is that everyone makes money. And, if the situation just isn't there, if it's not the perfect storm, then, if you're not satisfied with what you're having to pay and your customer's not satisfied with what they're having to pay you, then, I would just let the opportunity pass, keep those guys working, develop that relationship with them. Hey, I talked to you last week. We just weren't able to make it work on this lane. Where are your trucks at this week? Are you having trouble moving out of anywhere, anything like that? Just right. Talk with them. Okay. You can't just call any carrier. I mean, they might give you a rate, but it has to work for both parties involved.
Okay. Yeah, no,
I guess my advice would be just to filter out a little bit better which carriers you're calling, because if you're making the right calls, you're going to have the outcomes you're looking for.
Great question,
Thank you.
Ash, because I was thinking the same thing myself when Rick brought that up earlier. But let's face it, Rick, there are so many different scenarios.
Absolutely.
In so many different situations, aren't there?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's, with the carrier side, it's the same as the shipper side. Just because a shipper and I, hit it off and they want to give me 20 truckloads, if I'm not feeling good about that business, like I can make money and actually do a good job for them with my carriers that I have in mind, then, there's no shame in walking away from business, whether that be finding a truck or finding a load. If it's not right for both parties, then, there's no reason to do it. It's going to cause you more heartache. I can't tell you how many times a month I'll set a new company up, move a load for them, but just off, the experience from the way they handled themselves or the way they felt that we conducted ourselves, it was just kind of a mutual, this isn't really going to work. Now, I could continue, I could struggle it out and work with them and just make the money I could make, but that's not really the relationship you want with with one of your customers. You want something where every time you get a phone call from them, you're anxious to answer the phone, you're excited about what they're going to give you, and vice versa. Every time you call them, oh, great, I bet he has these trucks for me this week. And that trickles all the way down to the carrier. Not every truck is right for every load.
We never know until we really get into the relationship, do we?
No, we do not.
Yeah, I mean, you could have the greatest feeling about a new potential customer, and then, hey, you get them to fill out the credit app and then find out that they're going to be on prepay.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's happened. Yeah, that's a big one. Oh, yeah, that's always a downer. But even if they are on prepay, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because chances are you're not the first person who's ever told them that's the way it's going to have to be.
If they're willing to pay ahead of time, absolutely, yeah, I'll move your freight. Absolutely. Of course, the reaction you get is, gee, I don't know why I'm on prepay. I mean, we have great credit. I mean, that's a typical response. Would you agree, Rick?
Yeah, I would. More often than not, they're in somewhat of a denial stage about why that may have happened.
I'm with you. Rick, you have time for one last question?
No, absolutely.
Okay. Who's got the last question for Rick? Well, let me ask Rick the last question. This is like off to the side. You've been seeing your fiance now for 7 years?
Yes.
And you're not married?
No.
Okay. Should I leave it at that?
No, just why ruin a good thing?
Okay, I gotcha. Who's got the last question for Rick? Who's got the last question for Rick? It's *6. Well, hey, Rick, it has been a true pleasure having you on here. You are such a well-mannered, well-spoken young man for 25 years old.
I greatly appreciate that.
Obviously, that goes hand in hand with the profession that you're in, and explains a great deal of why you're successful in it.
Absolutely. You have to take pride in what you do, and I do. I enjoy it. I thoroughly enjoy it. I never go to work. I enjoy what I do every single day.
Absolutely. Well, Rick, it's been a pleasure having you on the call here. I'm just going to give everybody a short conclusion update here, and then we'll say goodbye. Okay?
Fantastic. Thanks, Ted.
And in conclusion of this call here, folks, all I can do is ask you this question: do you want to receive the email notices and the attachment for this and every call that I do every Tuesday, 2 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Eastern time? If you do, if you want to get that personal invite to each and every call that I do, then go to tedkeysonline.com/contacts and enter your contact details. That will get you on my email list, and you'll receive your personal invite to this and every call. Question: do you have any questions about the call today, or do you have a desire to join our top producing freight sales team? Well, then call me, Ted Keys, at 626-309-9141. Again, thanks for joining us on the call today, Rick. I will see you down the road sometime real soon. Take care. God bless. We'll see you all in the next call. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You've just taken a tremendous step forward by watching and applying my Tuesday conference call highlight. Do you desire to earn and learn with our top freight team and Christian-based office? Yes? We're searching for a self-starter who's serious, motivated, and ready to take action right now. Is that you? Go to tedkeysonline.com/contacts and enter your contact details. We provide top-notch freight agent sales training to you. Then you deliver those same skills with confidence to the freight industry marketplace. I'll talk to you soon.